Welcome to the Lynn and Scott Show. I'm Lynn Serrano, but you are...
I'm not Scott.
No, you're not. Is my co-host for today, Barry Selby. Thank you for being here, Mr. 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. I am so grateful.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you so much. And Scott today is with the one and only. Hello, Scott Ricard. Thanks for being here. Scott today is with doing a fundraiser, working with the bounty hunter. I'm going to say this funny. The dog. The bounty hunter, the dog. Yeah. And so, so I know Scott's having a great time and we wish you were here. There's some really awesome people that are here. And I'm just going to pop up some books here. Mr. Bob Donnell, also TED Talker. We got Mr. Hipster, we call Scott Schilling, because I love that. That sucks. What's now? And then, of course, we got the Mr. One and Only Steve Rizzo in conversation with the other Bob that we have in the room. And then the one and only Rex Sikes. Doesn't he look handsome? I knew how to dress him up. So I'm excited. I'm going to pop these guys up here like popcorn. Pop, pop. And we have the one and only Teodora's here. Welcome, everybody. How are you, Bob Donnell?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here. Mr. Hipster, how are you?
Fabulous. Excited to be here.
Yay. Thank you for being here, Miss Teodora.
Hello there. I'm coming from the car. I hope the sound is good. Alma has tennis again, and so here we are. I hope you can hear me okay.
Perfect. Yep. And the wonderful Steve Rizzo and Conversations with Bob.
And you know, that photo of Rex, he looks like he's starring in a James Bond movie.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, I
happen at one of those cocktail parties that they go to in all the Bond movies.
He told me he wished he had a body of a certain star, and I kind of made it happen. That's all I can tell you. I made it happen. Okay. That's a content creator for you. I just can't help it.
Change card. Yes.
And Mr. Rex Sikes, he must be on a call or something. But
no, I'm here. I just won't be on camera.
Okay.
Oh.
I washed my scalp and I can't do a thing with it.
Okay. As a girl, I guess I can relate.
That's pretty weird, Rex. I want you to know right now, because the little circle there, this keeps going raw.
May I say one thing? It's just great to be with all of you. And Lynn, thank you for having me. And I had the opportunity to be on Steve's show last week, and that was awesome. Steve, you're an awesome host. Lynn, you're an awesome host. Bob, and I can't see everybody here who's here, but everybody, thank you so much. Barry, and I am having trouble with Scott. I'm sorry.
Scott Hipster, yeah. We call him Scott Schilling, yeah.
Right, and Teodora. So thank you. I just wanted to say thanks. It's great to be here with you all.
Love you, Rex. So Barry, we kind of talked about different topics, and then you went ahead and put this one out there, and I kind of picked one out of the hat from you. So do you put yourself first? So what was your ideas on this topic here?
Well, as you may guess from the book that you showed of mine earlier, I really focus on helping people have healthy relationships. But most people have this habit of putting focus on the other person in a relationship. And so I've had a lot of work with my clients. It really helps them come back to themselves, because most of us, when we're in a relationship, tend to, I can say this, if we're not being selfish, as in like, I'm going to do it my way, we put the other person before our own needs. Especially if you have kids, that's even more challenging, because kids oftentimes take all our attention and there's nothing left for us. So my thought was, well, do we put ourselves first? Because one of the things I learned 30 plus years ago in a seminar was a ground rule they put in the seminar that I'm still learning how to do right, which is, take care of yourself first so you could then take care of others. Because most of us don't think of that way, and I didn't for many years. So the question for the room and for the panel is, do you put yourself first, and how do you do that in a way that's effective? Because I don't mean doing it so you're taking away from other people, but in fact, by putting yourself first, can you be more available to other people? So that's kind of where it started.
Love this topic. Anyone want to go first by chance? Teodora, did you want to say something, or?
So I come from a culture that, in general, women never put themselves first. It's all about the family and what the family needs, what the husband needs, what the kids, in Romania, women in general are very beautiful and they're blessed with, having the beauty that God is just gifted them with. But to go and really take care of putting yourself first is very hard, and women in general don't do that. I did not put myself first, and it was a very big mistake until a few years ago when I realized, wait a minute, I'm just serving everybody. How about Teodora? Where is Teodora stand? What is Teodora like? What is, so many women in general in my culture don't even know what they like, because it's all about others. So I think it's very important. I think putting yourself first is it's hard, but it's really finding where we are, who we are. And it's so important because we can grow from there. We can develop from there. And not only that, but we can help others because it's needed. It's like something that we need to do, so that, again, we can help others.
I've learned from that saying, you got to put your mask on and take care of yourself before you help anybody else. But think about it, on what gauge or what degree, because you could be there in the plane, you'd be like, I don't think I have enough yet. Well, when is enough of taking care of yourself before you're like, wait a second, I don't have enough oxygen yet to help you, I mean.
Then you have two hands, one mask for you, one mask for somebody else.
No, but
if you have two kids, you got a problem with that.
Yeah. So, so there's so many different ways of looking at this. So this is a great topic because it really is, and then of course, if you're taking care of yourself, then we have all these people that think that you're coming from an egotistical or narcissistic, place. And that's not true. If you're being more servant to yourself and like, okay, you want to put a mud mask on. Okay, maybe you should do that at nighttime, not during the day when you got other people to help, What? You're
Maybe.
Sick at school? I'm sorry, kids, but I got to have my mud mask on first, I mean, you got to prioritize, but, we all have the same hours in the day. And I think that's, but anyways,
I just want to go something that Teodora said, and it's true, because most of my clients are women, and women have generally been putting themselves second, not first. I don't think just Romania. I think many countries have had the problem, even in America. And there definitely women who've stepped up in front, but they haven't necessarily learned how to do that in a way that's healthy. So learning how to be putting yourself first, that is not selfish, egotistical, all that sort of stuff, but it's healthy so that you come forward and able to give from places that's like an overflow. The other challenge we do, and I know when I used to volunteer a lot, I would serve by giving everything I could give and be drained and not get filled up. So learning how to take care of my needs first, then I can give without any stress, and I can give from an overflow, which is the same thing for women too.
Yeah, I love that you said that. One of the boys.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because the old saying of, you got to put your own mask on first before you can help anybody else. There's truth to that. But as a person who spent his career really living by the theory of Zig Ziglar of you can have everything in life you want when you help enough other people get what they want. That servant leadership position is an interesting thing, and it is possible to get like Barry was saying, you can just get, the tank is drained, you're just empty. And if I were to look back critically on the career and on my life and a variety of different things, there's multiple times where I've been running on empty and running on empty too far. Probably why I wore out 2 hips. But here's the interesting, very seriously.
Yeah, and that's why we call you Hipster now.
I know. And well, but here's the rebirth that has come from that is I finally came to the point where I was basically shut down. And I got to the point where I could serve less because I had gotten to that point. And so therefore it was time to, okay, right hip, left hip, get them both done. And now like the PT guys are like, are you actually liking this? No, I'm hating every minute of it, but I'm excited about doing it because it becomes that rebirth, right? It's like the energizing, and it's really a feel it for me right now. I think probably for the first time in a very long time, I've realized that I don't know that I'm necessarily totally first, but I'm closer to first than I've been in a long time. But now I'm making better choices, and I'm choosing when I put somebody else first, it's because of a choice, not because of a have to. So there's a freshness about it that's different. And I don't know if I'm explaining it well or not, but that's the way it feels, right? It's kind of this rebirth of being able to go, wow, I am ready to, I got plenty of years left to do this new and better, different than I've done it. And that's what's exciting. So that's why it's fun to be on this show, to participate with all of you, because it's like, damn, I'm learning so much. This is so awesome.
And I can relate with you on that, Scott, because, like I've had to learn how to have compassion for my health issues now and not have them as an excuse, but to look at it. Okay, so I may not look the way I want to look, but I got to get better. It's a work in progress. I'm going to have knees replaced next year and all this other fun stuff. I'm going to go out to California and I'm like, do I bring my cane or do I not? Like, I don't want anybody to see that, like it's just these little things like, no, I got to take care of myself, and not care. And I am going to bring my handicap sticker, and things like that, it's just like, it's just that pride / like you said, we're getting more mature now, Scott.
That's right.
So, but I'm still going to color my hair before I go out there. I don't care. See, that's put myself first. But anyways, it's so many different ways to look at this topic. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I will jump in.
Mr. Rex.
The inanimate object is speaking.
It is a little weird.
The voice from nowhere. I love the way that like circle enlarges around that photo. Not that one, the other one, but that's okay. Whatever you want to do. As a kid, we get mixed messages. We're told to share our stuff, but also, watch out and look out for other people and don't go with strangers and all these kinds of messages. When I was in grade school and we would have class like elections where, who's going to take the erasers to the janitor or who's going to do this, and they would vote. I always thought that you were supposed to vote for the other person. I didn't realize I was supposed to vote for myself. And there were those occasions when I lost by one vote, and that vote was mine. I mean, there might have been other times when I was trounced, but the point was I thought that you were supposed to vote for the other person and put them first. The put your own mask on first is a logistical thing when you think about it. I mean, if there's 4 people, the person at the end of the row, if they said, help the person sitting to your right, well, the end person on the right then has nowhere to go. So you put your own mask on and help. I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense because it's practical. But if you said help the other person with their mask on first, and everyone could do that like in a daisy chain, then it would all work out fine. So I don't think it's one versus the other. I think when we realize that we're all in it together, helping yourself first is also helping another person. It's creating a win-win. And at the same time, you can't eat someone else. I mean, you can steal someone's food, but you can't eat for them.
Right.
So you have to eat your own food in order to stay healthy. When where a lot of this made sense to me, or tied to, was Napoleon Hill, because I started reading him as a child, and a lot of it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I read, Laws of Success and Think and Grow Rich, and then eventually all of the works, and they keep coming out with new versions of unpublished work. So it's always very cool. But it was Think and Grow Rich was about you. It was take care of yourself. But then there were things like develop a pleasing personality because you're not in this alone. Go the extra mile. Be the person who shows up first and stays late and helps other people. So it was sort of this balance. In order to help others, you really do have to have your own internal nest right. You have to have your internal practices right. So if you never are focused on getting your own act together, you're not going to be very efficient in helping another person. And so if you ultimately realize, like, we're all just an expression of one thing, we're one species on the planet, and you decide to help yourself so that you can help other people, which I think is ideal, I think we all win. If you say, well, screw everybody else, I'm just going to help me, well, then someone's going to lose. And most likely it's the person who says, screw everybody else, because no person can function as an island and truly get very far. So this is a beautiful topic, and it's about the balance. I mean, how do you create that balance where you do take care of your own needs and help other people take care of their needs without getting exhausted or without sacrificing any aspect of it, but by creating something that's bigger than both of us. So it's a beautiful, beautiful question, and I've loved the answer so far. It's really wonderful.
Thank you, Rex.
Thank you.
A talking book is what I am.
That's right. There's so much knowledge coming from that book.
Yeah, and he's dapper when he dresses up.
Not the James Bond photo, but where you see that thing, it's like I don't know, like it's something from a cartoon or something. Hello.
Oh, he just wants to be big one more time before
Hello. See that gray thing that comes out? That's the cool part.
All right, Rex. Hi, Steve.
What? Oh,
it's your turn.
When I knew about this question today, my brain went in every different direction. I didn't even know how I was going to answer this, but I think it's always a wonderful idea to help others, even if you're sacrificing certain parts of yourself. But I also believe there are a lot of people where it's a personality trait to a fault, where you constantly put yourself aside because you care for other people. And I think sometimes you can care for other people too much. And when I was delving back into my past, I realized I was one of those people. I always thought of someone else before me, always, whether it was my brothers or my sister or my mom. I just remember things. It's amazing how my brain works, so excuse me for this. But I just went back to a time, Christmas, when I was maybe 12 years old. My brother and I were opening up gifts, and my mom and dad bought me a jacket that I really loved. And my brother got a different jacket. And when he looked at my jacket, I could see the look on his face because that's the one he wanted. And I said to myself, wow, he looked so disappointed. I just said, wow, Rick, I really like yours. Do you mind switching? And he went, yeah, you don't mind? So he did, but I really wanted that jacket. And I realized that was a personality trait for me for a great part of my life, to a fault. I mean, there was a point when I wasn't making that much money and I was giving money to people that I know needed it, whether it was a sibling or a friend, that I would lend it to them, knowing that probably, and I never did, get it back. But, and then I started thinking, why am I doing that? And then I said, okay, it's just a part of who I am. But then I started realizing, as I got older, I think I started getting angry. I think I started getting frustrated, and I learned a very important word. And it's only the past 5 years, maybe. I can't do it. I don't say no automatically. I really think about it, and I'm saying, you know what, this is really going to be too much of an inconvenience to me. I'm sorry, I can't do it, and I'll explain why. And if they don't get it, well, then it's on them. I don't know if I was doing it when I was younger just to feel accepted, or is it because I really felt other people's pain or frustration or inadequacy, whatever it may be, and I would do whatever I could to compensate and help that person, which always made me feel good. Now I'm going to say something really personal. I believe that was one of the main factors why I left the marriage after 34 years. Because I was giving so much of myself to the marriage, to other people, to the house, to everything that we were doing, that I was negating a very important part of myself, a higher part of myself, a spiritual part of myself, my career in general. And I knew there were other things I needed to do, but I just didn't have the time or the strength to do it. And that caught up with me. And after a couple of years, and I remember the last 5 years of my marriage, I started saying, I'm smothered here. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing for me. And I decided to end the marriage. And I went out on my own. Was it painful? Absolutely. It's still, you know, some people say, you know, how could you do it? Everything was going great. Well, sometimes doing the right thing could be the most painful thing you could ever do. But I knew I had to do it. Is this making sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, too many people stay where they're not happy or don't feel fulfilled.
And it's not even that I wasn't happy. I'm not saying I was miserable. I was saying a great part of me, the most important part of me that I needed to explore that with intense intensity. And I just said, I need a new life. And I abruptly woke up one morning and said, I'm moving to California. And I didn't even know why I said that. And I left the next week and a half. Called friends up. I said, I need a place. They got me a place in Marina Del Rey. I stayed there for 2 years, trying to find out who Steven Francis Rizzo really was. And that's how I wrote my book, Conversations with Bob. It took me 7 years to write. But I had to go through that shit to find out who I was, to say that I've got to think of me now. I'm 71 years old. I don't feel it. I'm in really good shape. But, you know, you get to a point in your life, you get to a certain age where you just go, time hits you. And one of my greatest sayings that I come up with years ago was, time has a cruel way of saying, I told you so. And you really have to think of you if you really want to benefit other people. And that's it. It's selfish, but it's selfish in a very empowering way, because that's the only way you really can do for other people. Otherwise, it's going to come at you with a vengeance, and you'll either stay in that situation for the rest of your life, not exploring the happiness and success that you know you deserve and desire, what you were put on this planet to do, or you can compensate and live with what you're dealing with.
Wow, I like that. Yeah. Can I don't want to take somebody else's time, but can I jump back in and say something?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
As we turn the page on this conversation, many people know I teach neurolinguistic programming, and some of that, as well as other things, but some of it has to do with filters that we call meta programs, and a lot of people misunderstand these. But in a very simplistic way, there are things like, you know, are you a people person, an activity person? Are you a place person? Do you sort for information? You know, it's kind of like, or do you like collect things? So this is like, you know, kind of like primary, what we say are directives. A people person, for example, will talk about people. Another person who's really thing oriented will talk about thing. Another person who really likes information talks about information. So there are people who are internal sorters, meaning they make their own decisions. And then there are those who rely on other people to make their own decisions. So they'll say, well, I have to consult with my wife or my boss, or I collect a lot of information from other people, and then I make a decision. Now, understand that this is gradient. I mean, no one is just one thing versus another thing. It's not a black and white, but very, very much a grayscale. But there are those people who are self-sorters and other sorters. And some people, you know, live to kind of serve others, and other people kind of live to serve themselves. And one of the mistakes that's oftentimes made in each of us, and not the collection here, but in people who are out in the personal development or self-help fields or religion, or is to assume that everybody is the same. So if I am a self-sorter who talks about information, then I'm going to probably appeal to those people who are self-starters to talk about information. I'm going to say, you got to have the right information so you can make these decisions in your life so that you can move forward in a way that it becomes unstoppable for you, right? And my point being that it's all of these are facets of ourselves, and some have a greater preponderance than others. Now, if you take someone like Mother Teresa, for example, you could say, well, Mother Teresa spent her whole life in service of other people, but boy, did she get paid well. I mean, she didn't get paid in that she had pockets and she was getting cash, but she got power. She could walk into any office around the world, in any government, and was well recognized, and to me, I would guess that she did it out of a sense of, I'm helping the world, because that was like her prime directive. So at the same time she was focused on others, she was taking care of herself. It would have been harder for her to not serve others than it would be to have served others the way she did, because she was winning by helping other people. And now I'm fantasizing about it. I mean, I'm laying stuff on her that I don't honestly know. But my point being is that there are ways of taking care of ourselves and helping other people, but we also need to understand that how we address things for ourselves may not be how other people are. It's kind of like, I might like chicken and you might like salmon, but if I insist that you eat chicken because I think that's what, then I might be better off if I can say, eat what's important to you. Take care of yourself in your way and find the best method for doing that. Just because I like chicken doesn't mean you will. And so I just when we in a life situation, like, put your own mask on first before, it's because if you pass out, if every individual passed out, nobody would get helped. So if you put your own mask on, you're there to help somebody else. I mean, it's a life and death kind of thing. There are EMTs and police and fire and soldiers and things who have to steel themselves their mind. They can't, there are those people who don't do well in those jobs because they're so concerned about the other person and whether the person survives or doesn't survive or is maimed or not maimed or whatever, that they don't last long in that industry because they're too caring about the other person. And so some people have to be able to say, I did the best I could, and the patient died, and somehow reconcile that. So what each of us does, those listening or those speaking, really depends, on each of us as individuals, what we come to, without, because I shouldn't be making rules for any of you. I can propose things, but I can't make rules for you, in other words. And so in that way, if I understand who I am, I might be able to better serve and help other people first by understanding my limits and the limits and boundaries that I have. So with that, I will pass the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Barry?
Well, I was going to say, Bob, you want to say you've been quiet so far today?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I guess, the thoughts, I've struggled with that in the past, maybe when I was, in my early 20s. And it came to a point where I had to ask myself the question, what does it mean to me to put myself first?
Mm-hmm.
Once I discovered that what it meant to me was that I was not being helpful to others, or that I was placing a higher priority on me than someone else, then I began to be able to solve the problem, because then I started saying, well, what does it mean? What would be a healthy way of a meaning for me to put myself first? And then I started realizing that it gives me the opportunity, as you said, Barry, to operate from a surplus when I'm helping someone else. That it also gives me the opportunity to help even more people than what I could do if I was putting them first. And so that kind of helped trigger me to say, okay, it's to everyone's benefit for me to put myself first. And once you flip that script for yourself, it makes it easier to put yourself first. I think one of the other things that came about for me was the idea that I would rather operate and do things out of desire than out of obligation. And once I became aware that I could do things out of desire and not do so much out of obligation, it made it easier for me to prioritize things. Is this something I desire to do, or is this something I feel obligated to do? Going to this party because my friend invited me, but I really don't want to go. Or going to this event or speaking at this place. If it's not out of desire, then it's probably going to be out of obligation, and I'm just not willing to do that anymore. So once I did that, and then I think the third piece of that for me was this idea of giving, knowing I'm getting, not giving to get. Big difference. And once I could wrap my head around that, it made it easier for me to put myself first, because I knew that in that process, everyone was going to win and everyone was going to get to a higher level.
Yeah. Love it. One thing I want to throw back on there, because something I did myself for many years. I had to use the term, I was a people pleaser. And so I was always externally referenced because I may spend a lot of my youth being bullied. So I wanted to make sure other people were happy so that I didn't get hurt. So it was actually a self-preservation methodology, as bad as dysfunctional as that was. And so I spent many years in social circles, in business, and even in relationships, being a people pleaser for other people, because then there's the wiring. If I'm nice to them, then they'll be nice to me, which is the trap that a lot of us have fallen into, I think, over the years. And for me, learning that it was okay to put myself first wasn't against anybody, but it was about changing the order of operation, so that when I was taking care of myself, I could then still please other people up to the level I was comfortable doing. And if they were happy with that, like you were saying earlier, great. If they weren't, it's not up to me to worry about anymore. Because the other part is that I had to learn the hard way was, if somebody didn't like if I was giving something to somebody else, they didn't like it, wasn't my concern. It was their choice. And that became easier to give because then I wasn't so invested in pleasing other people anymore. So that disassembly of no longer being a people pleaser was a gift that I had to learn the hard way many times. But it's been really freeing for me to have that experience now.
You know, when Bob was talking there, it reminded me, just like if you, whether it be school or work, and you worked 8 to 5, everybody at night, it was like, I mean, it's just the way we were programmed, but usually everybody goes to bed at nighttime and tries to get rest up for yourself, so that when you come to work, everybody assumes that, you know, you were resting before you came to work, so to speak, or from, you know, to school. So, I mean, everybody has that accountability before you went to work to be at least rested and be the best you can. You know, you put yourself first before you go to work. You know, you brush your teeth, you do certain things to take care of you eat or do whatever so that you're not hungry. You do these basic things so that, you know, when you go to a function, you're functioning. And, you know, so if you look at it that way, that doesn't make everybody narcissistic or self-centered. It's just that you think people are coming with their cup full. You know, they're coming from not from a needy cup, but for a cup full to say, okay, you know, like after this show, I try to go to a mastermind and I try to contribute. You know, you don't try to go there just to, what can I take, but what can I give as well? So that just came to mind.
I think
it's so funny you say that.
Go ahead, Teodora.
Go ahead, Teodora.
It's so funny you say that. I was just thinking about relationships, and I wanted to build up a little on what Steve said about divorce. When I went through the divorce, right after it ended, and it was traumatic and it was ugly, but I thought so much about what did I do wrong? What could I have done better in that marriage so that it didn't turn out so dramatic and, you know, end so quick. And one of the things that came to mind was maybe I should have taken better care of myself first before taking care of the family and, you know, my husband. And it was just one of the things that I thought about was, well, here, every morning I wake up and the first thing I do, instead of putting myself together, I just go downstairs to make breakfast and make sure that everything's set on the table. So that was the perfect example of like not taking care of me so that I can take care of everything else. And then it just becomes unattractive to a point where So ew, right? So it was
Well,
just
then you start getting angry. Then you start getting frustrated with yourself. And
yes,
when that hits you all of a sudden like that, you go, holy shit. Because that's what happened to me when I went to California. I faced everything. And you have to confront yourself. And sometimes you realize, wow, there's a price to pay to be who you really are. And sometimes, you know, the answers were there the whole time. It's just that I was so blinded because it kept giving and giving. But the
yes,
irony there is that I found out that's my number one personality. My part of myself is that I do give. But now I'm giving from a different part of myself. And that's one of the reasons why I left. I left because I had to find out that this is the person that I am. And I have to think of me when I thought of what was really important. That's why when I go to my favorite Italian restaurant, there are people that sit next to me at my special place at the bar. I even have my name on the bar. They sit next to me, and they talk to me, and I help them. I talk to them. I don't. It's nothing heavy, but I do, and I get a thank you, and I realize that makes me feel good. I have friends calling me up for some pretty well-known people who are very famous, who I started out doing stand-up with, and they know what I do now. And they'll call me on the phone, or they'll text, or they'll email me, and I'll get a hold of them. We'll talk for a while. And I'm saying, this is what I was put on the planet to do.
Right.
But I was being kept from, I kept myself, I shouldn't say I was being kept. I kept myself from discovering that part because I got caught up in everybody else's shit. I got caught up in everybody else's life. And I forgot who Steven Francis Rizzo really was, or who he was supposed to do or be.
Right.
And like, it's hard. It's a journey, but man, it's worth it if you're willing to go through it.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, we get in a place where we end up giving resentfully. That isn't healthy anyway.
Exactly.
So giving place of joy is absolutely the case. Scott, you were going to say something after Teodora.
Yeah, well, what occurred to me when you were sharing, and quite frankly, the other shares since then have all kind of come down the same path, is if I personally am in a place of high intention and low attachment, if I have a high intention of imparting something good, doing something good, having some fun, doing whatever, and I really stay in that place of low attachment as to what it ultimately means to me, what it ultimately means to them, what it ultimately means to the situation. What Steve was saying, about sitting at the bar, I am having so much fun when I go to physical therapy. I jack around with the receptionist, and I said, because they always ask the same thing: who are you here to see? I said, well, I'm here for Zach's House of Terror, right? And that's the way I'll walk in, and they'll start laughing, right? And this is the first thing in the morning, and it's like, well, no, I'm sorry, it's not really the House of Terror. It's just the torture chamber in the House of Terror, right? And it's like I'm having fun being a goofy ass.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think, for what that's done for me, is to refill the tank. And I think we all do that in a little different way. But like when I'm contributing, if I'm contributing from stage, or whether I'm teaching or training, that actually fills me. I mean, it drains part of you, but it fills you on the other, on the other side. And so again, I don't do it because I see it putting myself first, but in essence, because of the action and the activity, it automatically puts you first. So I've never really thought of it that way, right? It's just what you do.
And speaking of somebody that gives always first, Mr. Scott.
The Jonesmeister.
Yes, Jonesy's in the house. Thank you for being here. We love you and we miss you. We look forward to hearing the scoop next week of what happened with the dog.
Indeed.
So,
what happened to his dog?
No. Bounty. Go ahead. Go ahead. I have my accent. Go ahead, Barry. Speak, please.
I was going to say, because we're at 22.
Yep.
And 44. So we're going to start bring this round full circle. Scott, you have any thoughts? Because I know I want to sure you give space to complete your time here.
Well, I really appreciate, like I say, I always appreciate these shows in the thought-provoking answers of the esteemed panel. I mean, everybody comes from such a great place and a desire to be of service, and in that, it feels great, and to have the honor to be asked to do it, it feels great as well. I mean, it's part of the filling of all that, right? So, I mean, I'm just happy and honored to be part of this, because I get to learn from Rex and Steve and Bob and Lynn and Teodora and you, Barry, and okay, we'll throw in Jonesy too. Is he still working? But
he's listening.
Oh, dang it. Anyway, it's just it's an honor to be able to do it, because this is filling. So this is kind of that, the give back becomes the refill. It's awesome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, cool. Hey, I would add, and correct me if I'm
he was listening. I said thanks, Hipster.
Correct me if I'm inaccurate, but here's a new chapter to consider. And I just obviously, but if you're doing something because it fulfills you, this is a wonderful thing. In other words, there are some people who say play the flute, and they would play the flute if they were in the desert and their mountains by the seaside by themselves. It doesn't matter if there are people listening. They love playing the flute, and it fulfills them. And if people happen to hear them, then both are well served. Some, if they like the flute, right? So on the other hand, there are some people who play the flute just for other people. I mean, where they get their joy is not playing in the desert or the mountains or by the seaside by themselves, but in front of an audience, and knowing that audience hears their music, and they're being inspired and lifted up, that they take great joy in this. So it's really not a matter of, am I doing it? I mean, in some ways it's like, am I doing it for them or am I doing it for myself? But if you're doing it for yourself and you're great alone, or you're doing it for others and you're great with that, you understand? I mean, it's like, where is the focus of attention? If it's on, I love this because people hear my music, or I love this because I get to play the flute, it has to do with something other than where the locus of attention is going. Is it, am I serving myself or am I serving other people? It's the activity or the spiritual connection with what you're doing that is where we're being fed or fulfilled, and then it doesn't matter if it's them or ourselves, because in both cases the individual is being served.
Yeah, that's the magic.
That's awesome. Scott, did you want to say something else before you leave? I know you got to leave us soon.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Rex kind of finished with it. It's one thing, let me take it as opposed to the playing the flute. It's one thing if you like to share because you like to share. It's another thing if the audience, or there's an audience there to appreciate the sharing. When you're in both, that's nirvana.
Yeah.
When they benefit from the sharing and you have that opportunity to share, what a great feeling.
And that's how I feel about this when I pick the name of the show, as we all see it. We all have different ways we see different topics. And that's what I love about this, is it's all of us talking, and we're letting everybody else be the fly on the wall. And it's just really, really important to just I got to remove this one here. And so, that's the wonderful thing about what we are doing here is, so thank you so much, Scott, for being here.
Lots of fun. I'm going to pop off.
Okay.
See you next week.
I love you.
Thank
you.
See you in a few.
Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Wow, cool.
So now, Teodora, did you want to go before you need to leave, or?
Sure. I was going to take this actually to a step further and think about, it just made me think about when I sit down at the kitchen table with clients and we go over finances, I always tell people the rule number one is to always take care of number one, which is you. So even when we think about taking care of and putting yourself first, honestly, people cannot retire because they don't put themselves first. Not because they don't save, but maybe because financial they're not in the position to, because they just pay everybody else before they pay themselves.
That's such a
So
great
this
point.
is such an important, we really have to listen and take this serious, because it is serious. Putting yourself first is something very important, even in our financial life. It's
True
so
enough.
incredible what a difference it can make when we think about us. And it's not about being selfish, it's about taking care of us.
Thank you,
That's great.
Teodora.
Great point.
Love that. Mr. Donnell?
The thought that I have is a lot of reasons that people won't put themselves first is because they think it's going to be narcissistic, or they think that they're being selfish. One thing I found out about people who are worried about that is they typically aren't. So a narcissist that won't even ask the question,
Right.
am I being selfish? They won't even ask the question.
No, yeah. I'm not narcissistic. It's more like it.
So a good indicator for us all is to, if we're checking ourselves, then to realize that's probably a good indicator that it's not being narcissistic. It's not being selfish.
Bob, that's your next book title.
What's that?
Narcissists won't ask if they're narcissistic.
Yeah. And it's true. And we all know that, right? But when we get caught up in this cycle of putting other people first, I think when we start to check ourselves, it's probably a good indicator that we're moving in the right direction.
That's a great point. Great point.
Love it.
And the same thing goes as if we remember that keeping the knowledge or keeping our struggles to ourselves, which I do a lot and I'm trying not to, but not when you discover what you were doing and you're bettering yourself, it's better to share with people where you were, because it helps other people realize your vulnerability, but it also allows you to grow because you're out of your comfort zone. And it's important to know, look at all the people that have gone before you, that because they had the courage to speak or go through that and share it, you too don't feel like you're the oddball, So I think, sharing your knowledge is very important.
I'm sorry, I got to pop back in.
Sure, Rex.
Before I have to book.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Yes, indeed. The final chapter. The Teodora said is so important. Take care of yourself, and especially in a financial world, it's an interesting thing. As a filmmaker, I used to help lots of people. I'd consult for free. I'd do things for free. I'd say, no, go ahead, take care of everybody else first, then you can take care of me. And then oftentimes what would happen is they'd take care of everyone first and had nothing left for me. And then I would feel resentful, going, well, wait, I did all this stuff for you for nothing, and now you don't have anything to give me. And they go, well, you said you'd do it for nothing. And I said, well, I didn't say I'd do it for nothing. I said, just take care of everybody else first. And so, and I realized, especially when having children, that, there's a certain point at which you can sacrifice everything for your kids. But if the message they get is sacrifice everything, then they grow up sacrificing everything. And what I learned in business, and this is why I love being agented or managed, because they take care of all this stuff and I don't ever have to ask. I don't have to have that responsibility. Is they go make sure that, he's paid, make sure he's provided for, make sure these are done, because sometimes we don't do that for ourselves. And if you want to be a healthy role model for other people, you have to have what Teodora said. You got to go, look, it's not transactional and it's not zero sum. It's not crush your competition. If you say, hey, I expect to be compensated first, or I expect to be paid first, or I expect to be treated appropriately along with everybody else. I'm not asking for all purple jelly beans and, being out, whatever. I'm just saying, if you're going to treat others fairly, treat me fairly too. I think having that as sometimes a starting place in business, and makes it healthy for everybody if everybody knows, and if it's done with a paper trail so that nothing is for question. I mean, then it makes a lot of sense, because you're not out to harm anyone, but you're trying to make sure that yourself and everyone else is everything is completely on the table, and it's, there's nothing, and while it can never necessarily be always spoken, I mean, that's thank you to the attorneys in this world, but the better clarified things are, I think the better it works. And then if you take what Scott said about high intention, low attachment, everybody gets better served that way. So thank you, Teodora, for sharing what you said, because I think it's such an important piece of all of this.
Yeah. And I
guess
first,
the saying goes.
Yeah, Rex didn't get all of his green M&Ms or something in the green room, so he didn't show his face tonight. So obviously, I got to negotiate his contract here somewhere.
That's right. Get those gosh damn green jelly beans in that green room, and I will be on camera next time, and not just a enlarging bubble when I speak.
We have the power of control.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes. Well, this was a great discussion, and as I said, this really was on my mind all day. I think it's important that everyone that's listening, it's great to give of yourself. So don't get any one of us wrong. It really is good to do that, but I think you have to ask yourself questions. Is it a part of your personality? Is it a weakness? And by helping people now, and it makes you feel good now, you got to ask, how will this make me feel if I continue doing this many years from now? Because your entire life is based on the choices that you make. And for every single choice you make, whether you make it consciously or unconsciously, there's always a consequence. And in fact, where you are, where we all are at this point in our lives, is based on choices that you made at some point in the past. Those choices are the key factors that determine the quality of life that you have right now. So, like I said, giving is good, but when I think it can be an addiction. I think it can be a shield to keep you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. And when you start getting to the point where you feel you're getting angry and you start blaming people for what you don't have or what was taken or whatever it is, then that's a wake-up call. And you have to make choices that are going to be conducive, that's going to make you happy. And it's not easy sometimes. Sometimes it's incredibly difficult. But as I said earlier, it's worth the price and the time.
That goes hand in hand with Teodora said, don't shortchange yourself, and ask yourself, did you put yourself first this week when you got your paycheck?
Yeah.
And so it all wraps up all together there. And so, Barry, you have any more insight or?
A couple of thoughts. One thing came up in listening to several people in the last few rounds was some people oftentimes give to get. They only give to get back, and that's not help. That's not putting themselves first either. That's being more selfish in the negative sense. Right. But if you start giving, again, as you said earlier, like after taking care of yourself, giving from your overflow, giving when you have enough space to give without stressing yourself out, that's a way of giving in an effortless way. On the flip side of that, a question that comes up, and this happened with clients as well, is, are you open to receive? Because some people are also afraid that if they receive something, it's like taking, which is not the same thing. That by being, again, putting ourselves first, we've got to take from everybody else to do that. So we're resentful about that. And we get all this knotted up emotional baggage, which is not who we really are. But we learn how to receive, especially when we get compensated for what we do through value, through money, through being taken care of. That's balance. Yeah. And I think for all of us, that idea about, I remember somebody did a diagram years ago about how giving and receiving is like on this big circle. We have to have a balance between the both of them to be healthy. But putting ourselves first is how you do that. Is you can have a giving and receiving flow, for want of a better word, that's really putting ourselves first. Because again, we're not an island. We're not doing things alone. As Rex was saying, or Scott was saying, the flute. The whole thing about the flute was about playing the flute because you're joyful about doing it. And when other people benefit from that, that's like an added bonus. Versus you're not playing to them to get paid only. It's that sense of finding the balance in between all of that. So Just some thoughts.
You know, narcissistic people usually they'll compliment themselves from here to kingdom come, but truly, you know, putting yourself at first, you really should be kind with your words and be kind and acknowledge the things you do. And, you know, I think that helps fill your cup up too, is knowing that before you give a compliment to Bob, hey, Bob, you know, I like your shirt, or, you know, thank you for your live you did the other day. I appreciate that. Well, why don't you look at your own live and see what you thought of value of it, or, you know, whatever you see in others, see it in yourself too, and accept it and embrace it. You know, I know I'm not very good with compliments, and I try, but I always realize I deflect it. So I'm like, and yeah, my kids, when they, you know, do something good and they get a compliment, I'm like, did you say please? Did you say, or did you say thank you when you got the compliment? But again, to myself, I'm bad about that, and I'm working on that. I'm really working on that. But it's this simple as that, you know, putting yourself first and realizing, wait, somebody gave you a compliment. Don't deflect it. Acknowledge it. You know, and yeah. So I just wanted to throw that
I
in
used to do
there.
it all the time. Like, you know, if you only knew me, you wouldn't do that. You know, you wouldn't say that sort of crap.
Yeah.
We have a bad habit of putting ourselves down.
Yeah.
You know?
So
let it in.
And one of the things that you can do is to say, I'm getting better at accepting compliments. I'm improving with being gracious when somebody says something nice about me and I accept them. If we say I'm bad at accepting compliments, we're only reaffirming the very thing that we want to get over. So accentuate the progress and emphasize the thing that you are getting better and better and better at in a way that delights and surprises you.
yes.
There you go.
And the gratitude activator is awesome. Absolutely. Well, I think this is a wrap. Barry, you did a great job as a co-host. I really appreciate you doing that.
I was helping you. You were doing all the work.
No, I think we did both. We both did a good job.
You both did the heavy lifting. It was awesome.
Well, thank you.
Well, you guys, anybody got any last little words before we leave? We're all
Thanks
good.
for joining us. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's like as we all see it. And we had Steve Rizzo, Barry Selby, Teodora Moga. Did I say it right?
Yes.
And then Steven Sikes or RexSykes.com, and the Bob Donnell, the one and only. I love you all. Thank you for
and
Scott Schilling. Yes, that's right. So thank you guys all. I appreciate and love
Lynn
you
Serrano.
all. All right, you guys. Love you guys.
See you next week.
Thank you.